flagged some of the points that he had made. He felt that Prime Minister had sincerely welcomed him to India. He spoke of the informal summit as having produced visible progress. He described his experience in India as a memorable one and that he had enjoyed discussions with the Prime Minister. And both President Xi Jinping and the Prime Minister have conveyed their appreciation to the government, the state government of Tamil Nadu, for the excellent arrangements, including the very grand welcome that President Xi Jinping was given. The President himself spoke of the welcome and of the warmth with which public in Chennai has received him and his delegation. The discussions focused on what had happened after the Wuhan summit in the past approximately year and a half. And both leaders have agreed that many of the dialogue mechanisms which have been formed or which have been reformed since the Wuhan summit has created a very good momentum in the relationship, and that the engagement between India and China across all sectors has intensified. They also agreed that strategic communications have deepened and that they should be continued, and both leaders have therefore agreed that the informal summit provides a very good platform for the leaderships to engage, and President Xi Jinping endorsed the idea that we should continue these informal summits between the leaders of India and China in the future. There was a good conversation on trade. As you know, this is an issue which has been of concern here back home. And President Xi Jinping, after hearing out our Prime Minister on this issue, said that China is ready to take sincere action in this regard and to discuss in a very concrete way how to reduce the trade deficit. Now, one of the important understandings that the two leaders reached, therefore, was that a new mechanism will be established to discuss trade, investment and services. This will be at an elevated level. From the Chinese side, it would be the Vice Premier. His name is Mr. Hu Chunhua. From the Indian side, it will be the Finance Minister of India, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman. The decision on when and how this mechanism is to be activated will of course be done now through diplomatic channels. This is not something the leaders go through. And President Xi Jinping also then welcomed investments from India into China, including in the information technology and pharmaceuticals sectors. The two leaders also agreed that they should explore through this new mechanism the possibility of establishing manufacturing partnerships. And Prime Minister suggested that both sides could identify certain sectors, certain specific industries where investment could come in and where manufacturing would help create employment, create jobs, and enhance the market for both sides. Obviously, when trade is being discussed, one of the issues briefly touched upon was the RCEP, the 16-member, the discussions between 16 countries on forming a common regional trading agreement. And Prime Minister specifically said in this regard that India looks forward to this, but that it is important that RCEP is balanced, that a balance is maintained between trade in goods, trade in services and investment. And President Xi noted this and said that China and India are ready to discuss this further and that Indian concerns will be taken into account. It was a brief discussion, but it is an important point. President Xi raised the issue of engaging more on the defense and security side. He said that there was a brief review of the ongoing exchanges and cooperation, after which the President of China said we need to step up engagement in this area. This will enhance mutual trust between the two militaries and the security forces. And they have extended an invitation to the Raksha Mantri, our defense minister, to visit China. Again, the dates, the timing, and so on will be discussed through diplomatic channels. The two leaders had a fairly long discussion on people-to-people relations, and both Prime Minister and President Xi agreed that we need public opinion in both countries to broad-base the relationship that we have between India and China. And to this extent, under this rubric, a number of issues were discussed. The first, of course, being the 70th anniversary of India-China relations next year. We have agreed that 70 events will be celebrated, 35 on each side, this has been more or less decided what sort of events these will be, and in effect it means that there will be at least one event each week in the anniversary year, either in India or in China. And both leaders agreed that this sort of intensive propagation of the public side of the relationship should in fact lead to public opinion on both sides being engaged in the relationship. The Prime Minister also specifically proposed that we need to give greater emphasis on tourism in both directions, and he felt that the 70th anniversary of China's liberation, which was just celebrated this year, and the 75th anniversary of the independence of India would be the two milestone years in which we should look to significantly enhance tourism from the existing levels to a new level. And in that regard, the Prime Minister also suggested that in order to enhance P2P contact between the public in both sides, we should also look, among other things, at homestay. And President Xi Jinping gave a positive response to this particular suggestion. President Xi spoke of greater facilitation for yatris going to the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, and Prime Minister suggested a number of ideas on the connect between the state of Tamil Nadu and the Fujian province of China. This was the province in which the city of Quanzhou is located, where recently, or in the last decade or so, Tamil inscriptions and fragments of a temple, Shaivite temple, have been discovered, and where there is now increasing evidence that traders from Tamil Nadu as well as from other parts of southern India actually established communities. Therefore, among the various ideas is joint research on how we can explain to our own public this connect that is there between the Tamil Nadu and Fujian. There was a decision to establish sister state relations between Tamil Nadu of India and Fujian of China, and various other initiatives in this regard. The idea is that we also strengthen the connection between southern India and China in the same way that Buddhism was a connect between the northern part of India and China. There was some discussion on international and regional issues. Both President Xi and Prime Minister.
तो विदेश सचिव अपनी प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस के जरिए ये बताते हुए कि इस चेन्नई में महाबलीपुरम में हुई इस मुलाकात के जरिए किस तरह से भारत और चीन के रिश्ते एक नई ऊंचाई पर पहुंचे हैं, और ऐसी अनौपचारिक वार्ता, ऐसी इनफॉर्मल समिट आगे भी जारी रहेगी। किन किन क्षेत्रों को लेकर, किन किन सेक्टर्स पर विचार हुआ, चर्चा हुई और आगे क्या होगा, ये पूरा रोड मैप रखते हुए विदेश सचिव।